I'm figuring this out. Hello, 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 hello. I think I can just hit. Just hit the video caps now. Boom. Now it's, oh wait, oh I do this. I hit the eyeball. Bam, eyeball. Bam. There we go. Hey, 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 everybody. What is it? It's Friday, 10 a.m. We're here again. Looks like we have some viewers. Oh, we have 4 viewers. I think we have 4 viewers. Oh, there's so many things to figure out on this thing. Why does it go back to the... Wait, what's happening? Oh, because it lags a bit. I'm never going to be used to this lag. But there you go. Hello, it's Friday. I'm Dan Goodsell, and I think I've redubbed this thing Crazy Kids Food Live. Crazy Kids Food was a book that me and my buddy Steve Roden did for Taschen Books about 1,000,000 years ago, where we chronicled a lot of our collections, his and mine. And so I thought that would be kind of fitting to call this little show that, because it's kind of an extension of that, where I sort of deal with a lot of the stuff that I collected and Steve collected. Steve's not in the collecting business of this sort anymore as much. Well, neither am I, because I just can't find the good stuff anymore. Where did all the good stuff go? Today, we're going to be looking at this box of stuff. Oh, look at this box. What does that box say on it? It says, Quik, Snaps, Mr. Wiggle. As you can see, I have an incredibly specific way of filing things, which is, yes, this is the typical filing. If a box has a giant P on it, that means packaging. At some point, this box was full of candy. It is no longer full of candy. It is full of all those other things. So yeah, so we're gonna look at Quik, the Nabisco Snaps, and Mr. Wiggle, and that's what we're gonna do. It's 10:02, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna get started. Once again, I see we have some people in chat. How many people do we have watching? We have 6 people watching, I think. I think I count as 1. I don't know. Still figuring this out, but we're going to start off with, in the tradition of yesterday, we're going to start off with a thing that's not really part of the whole, what we're mainly talking about. And this is a pencil box. A Dixon Ticonderoga pencil box that has this super cool, it's actually Ethan Allen. Ethan Allen, the Ethan Allen, the hero of 1775 on this Ticonderoga. Ticonderoga, it's a city? No, it's a fort. It's a fort in New York. See, all the answers are on. They put them all on there because they assume probably that kids were going to be looking at this kind of stuff. But this is super cool. It's a little pencil box, 2 5/10 medium, and this is the kind of thing I love for. I lived for. Ticonderoga pencils. Pencil collecting probably would have been a cool collection. I never got into it. I collected a few pens. Not ballpoint pens, but markers. And we'll look at my markers someday. They're all in a bin up there on the shelf. So that'll be fun to look at someday. Let's go on to another dip and sip straws. Okay. Like the other day we had those other little straws that had that little wafer in them. Let's look at these guys. See, these ones are actually coated. So it's got like, I pulled one of them out of here, and it's never going to want to go back in. Never. So, Dip and Sip actually made it into the Crazy Kids food book, as I remember it. Fun. Chocolate. They probably made, let's see if they made other flavors. Flavor magic is in the flex straw, famous drinking straws that bend. So you dip it into the milk and sip flavor treat. Youngsters love that fun and the flavor. 12 jumbo straws. Dip and sip. Once again, it's just a couple little generic kids, but still, it's a great piece of packaging. They put this sort of weird polka dot pattern in the background. Fun. Jeff Vick. Hey, Jeff. How you doing? We'll do like one more of these little fun things. Seal test chocolate melt. I just sold it. I had an extra one of these for all these years. I just sold it on eBay, finally. And this one's kind of fun because it's sort of a different face on each side. Closed eyes, the kid, daughter, dad, mom. And of course, milk cartons are incredibly hard to collect and didn't get. They kind of got saved, but since they're hard packaging, you can't collapse them. Like a lot of my cereal boxes, when we go through cereal boxes, we'll see is you can collapse cereal boxes, so it's a lot easier to have millions and millions and millions of them. Now we're gonna do the snaps. Let's get right to the snaps. These are the 1962 ones. We're just going to look at the 1962s today. The later 70s ones, which actually lasted into the 80s, I think, because actually I saved, they still were around in the 80s because I remember going into a liquor store somewhere and getting them in the 80s. Could have been like 1985. And I saved a part of one of those boxes, one of the chocolate snaps. So they still kept making them, but I think they were, because they're sort of a weird size, not really a grocery store size. Maybe at some point they were grocery store size, but they were more of like a liquor store size. Let's start with vanilla. These look like they would have been incredibly good. I don't remember there being vanilla when I was a kid. I just sort of remember the chocolate chip ones and then the chocolate ones. These vanilla ones, my God. And these snaps had like a really particular taste to them. They also had that snap to them. They were like this unusual kind of crunch, and they were just fantastic. And once again, look at this glorious box. Look at these two side by side. Oh my God, it's like perfection in action. The other interesting thing about these ones is the later boxes. These ones you see, it's like front. The later boxes did the vertical horizontal. So one side would be vertical, and then the flip side would be horizontal. So you could have two shelving options, which I'm sure makes a lot of sense for like a 7-Eleven or liquor store, as opposed to a grocery store, which they're never going to want to display like that. And here we see on the top, 10 cents, written in pen. So back before they probably even had little stampers. But if you can really see, really lightly, you can see on there. I probably can't see it. Oh, maybe I can get a little bit of glare on there. Where is it? Oh, there it is, right there. There's a little code on there, which is interesting because they actually have a batch code on there. Back in 1962, which batch codes, I can't imagine were very typical back then. Now everything has a batch code because they just run them through there. And here's the chocolate, which has the little bear guy, which is, I guess we get a little better light on that side, which is just beautiful. And as you can see, I put this guy back together. And once again, these are little hard boxes, so once again, not super easy to collapse down. I got all these, I'm pretty sure in the same place, which was a big collection of cereal boxes that was saved by a guy that worked for Nabisco. And in addition to the cereal boxes, he also saved a lot of other boxes. He worked designing the premiums. We'll talk about him another time, but it was this gigantic collection out of New York that um, I and Steve bought a ton of boxes from. Just Kids bought a ton of boxes from. This was one of those gigantic collections that you don't see too much anymore. Not that you ever saw them, but it was one of those huge collections where the guy had saved boxes from the 40s through the 70s. So it was just tons of stuff. And he worked in the industry, and so there were tons of things that he personally worked on. And then a lot of weird stuff came out of there because that was the thing about industry guys is sometimes they just save stuff as reference to think about, or they, as with any person that saves stuff, they just throw it in a box sometimes, and it just builds up and builds up and builds up. Excuse my Zuzu, Ginger Snaps. He's a little clown. He's got a little hat. He's got crazy little eyes. The back is exactly the same as the front. I don't know why I keep showing you all of these. Not much interesting going on the sides. It is nice that they're dated, So I mean, and for all we know, they probably made these boxes from 62 to 72. They might have made this exact same box for 10 years, and that's the crazy thing about it is like these kind of things are like amongst the hardest things to find because once again they're so ephemeral, they're so single use. Cereal box. You didn't buy it at the liquor store, eat the box of cereal, and then toss it. You brought it home. The kid could obsess over it. This is like you're gonna eat this all at once or 2 days at the most, and boom, it's gonna go right in the trash. Now we'll go to a little Ginger Snaps box. Man, I'm never getting used to this camera with the little Sunshine Baker on there. I used to collect a lot of Sunshine cookies. I don't have as many as I used to. But this is, we could use a little more character, but already we have, a beautiful drawing of the Ginger Snaps. Oh, here we go. And as you see, here's the vertical versus the horizontal. So this, once again, probably would have ended up, just like animal crackers. I don't know. Maybe you could. But does anybody chat? Do you remember where you bought animal crackers? The Barnum animal crackers. Did you just buy them at the liquor store? Did you buy them at the grocery store? I don't know. I don't remember. I don't have a great memory, which is interesting. We'll switch gears a little bit. It's the Colgate's Peter Pan soap. And as I remember it, this wasn't Disney related. Although at a certain point, Peter Pan soap did have Peter Pan on the box in the 50s at one point. So Disney, for whatever reason, decided to do that. Peter Pan peanut butter was not Disney related. Yeah, Disney mostly just did tie-ins with things. I guess by the 70s they started doing more stuff. Here's a nice sweet piece that's pretty darn cool. It's an orange drink carton. Little what is that? A quart? I think that's about a quart. Grocery store. So Target. They really put Target into the mix. I mean, how long's Target even been around? I don't know. But I guess grocery store. So I guess they did have these things in the grocery store. I don't remember them. I always remember buying full-size cookies in the grocery store. But this one was from a line of cartons that they did that had the Jay Ward characters. And so there's a couple of ones that are like the full-size gallon, or yeah, I guess they're gallon. Ones with Dudley Do-Right and Tennessee Tuxedo, which the Red Owl, good old Red Owl. There's Tennessee Tuxedo and there's Dudley Do-Right, the cartons, but those are flats. And so this one, when you're buying one that's already put together, that it was saved. And it's, once again, how great is this? Each different side has a different graphic, the swimming. He's doing some yo-yo. He's on the orange. He's doing the unicycle. Um, General Mills made these guys. Cloverland Dairy Farms. So they probably, it's pretty interesting. Made from General Mills fruit drink concentrate. So maybe they made the concentrate and they shipped it out to the packagers, and then the packagers made these, because Cloverland, I'm sure that's it's Baltimore, Maryland regional, and that was the thing with all this stuff is, not all this stuff, but there's this sort of divide between regional products and then the national products. Like Kellogg's is everywhere, but something like Cloverland is a dairy that probably just generally did milk, but they also did some things like this, some fruit drinks. I mean, I absolutely remember when I was in elementary school, we'd have nutrition or whatever it was, which was like that sort of break between second and third period, and they'd come around with this little cart, and every day I would get a little fruit drink of some sort, which was always Target started in '62. Wow. See, I think when I think of Target, I think of it as an '80s, '90s thing, because I do not remember them being out here at all. Flex straw. What's it? Free 8-inch long bubble gum in there, which yeah, I'm sure Mom loved that. Really great graphics on this one. Why is Peabody so dark? Um, Probably because they didn't calibrate the gray very well. He really is dark on the carton. Let's see if we can get. He really does look. He does look that terrible on the carton. It's a little dark in here. I've got my big light going, but he is dark. So I'm sure. I'm sure. I mean, see how I can't really see it. I mean, he's dotted out. It's hard to tell. I can't tell if they did a dot matrix on him, or whatever the hell you call that. Dallas would know what they call that. But yeah, he really is. He's way too dark. Flex straws. Used to collect a lot of straws, um, and it's nearly endless. There's Disney ones with all the characters. Look at how cool it has this weird reclosable dispenser. Not quite sure how that works. Put hair back. It has a weird little slot, which I guess you kind of maybe, I don't know. That is a process I am never gonna understand. But paper straws. We're going back to paper straws. General Mills owned the food licensing for J. Ward and TTP. Well, there you go. Oh yeah, so General Mills did all that stuff, and so then they would license it out to the dairies to make the things, and I guess supply them with the. They would probably supply them with the fruit drink concentrate, and that's how that would happen. We have Jim Rash in the chat, which is great. Here we have your full collection of Mr. Wiggles. Mr. Wiggle, one of those great products. I think the reason why Mr. Wiggle is sort of, I guess I could have a light that kind of comes on the front. I'll work on the lighting some more. Mr. Wiggle is one of those characters that really sort of lights up the collector base, at least in people that collect the same sort of strange thing. So I seem to be the common kid packaging I find at estate sales, always shoved in the back of the cupboard. Yeah, and I mean that's one of the other things about a lot of these collectibles. It's like, what some things survive because of where they ended up, like straws. The mother never throws the straws out because they never turn bad, and so the straws just take up some amount of space and never go away. So Mr. Wiggle, we'll get to the puppet someday. There's actually two puppets, but Mr. Wiggle made this beautiful hand puppet. which is he is just a work of art. And I know when I started collecting and found out about Mr. Wiggle, I was just like, that puppet is the thing I need. And I surged high and low and was ready to pay whatever the price was. Luckily, they were not uncommon. So a lot of the East Coast guys, they'd find them, and then I might have bought mine from John Anderson, and it was, and I will drop names of people that have been in the collectible business forever. Um, if you don't know who they are, there you go. But John Anderson was one of the early guys that sort of paid attention to a lot of the food collectible stuff and realized it was interesting because he had, I believe, had a huge childhood collection, not childhood connection to the stuff. And I mean, people like me, that's, I just had a huge childhood collection to this stuff. Um, Childhood connection to this stuff. And so when I started collecting, I started looking for Funny Face stuff because Funny Face was gone at the time. And I was like, I remember these things and I wanted to see them again. We didn't have the internet where you could go to my website and see, pretty much all of his stuff um, in 1 second. Now you just type in Pillsbury Funny Face and you can look at hundreds of images. Well, back in the olden days, it was zero. So some of us had to do all the work to start getting the stuff on there, so that everyone else can just sort of bathe in the nostalgia without having to do too much work. But I, having been a collector since a kid, collected comic books my whole life. Still, I don't buy as many actual comic books anymore, but I collect comic related stuff from my childhood. Just that collector gene was in me. And so when I thought about something from my childhood that I did not save, which was most of it, I wanted to find it. And then that led to me wanting to find all of the other adjacent stuff, like Mr. Wiggle, because I saw that puppet somewhere and I was like, oh my God, I have to have that. And then, of course, I said, oh, now I have to have all the boxes. And good God, what beautiful boxes these are. The crepe. The only kind of sad thing about Mr. Wiggle is that we have 3 red boxes, which is like, it is a little bit sad. It would, you've got the orange and the grape and the lime. You just wish somehow we'd have done a pineapple to get like a yellow box, or maybe a cherry banana. But I guess they wanted to just sort of stick to the classic fruits. But once again, each box has a different Mr. Wiggle pose, each with their little fruits. It's like, oh my God, I love it. He's holding the little raspberries. He's holding the little strawberries. So I did end up getting the puppet, and then these guys, if you look on the back, these are signed by the designer, the packaging designer, situation creator, and illustration. So I actually got all 6 of these from Scott Bruce. Oh, why this one has a little bug hole in it? I don't know why it has a bug hole in it. I got all 6 of these from Scott Bruce, who's the original guy who did some of the first books on cereal boxes. And he actually found this guy. This guy also did a lot of the post-cereal stuff. His art agency. And he did all the Mr. Wiggles. Sadly, he did not have anything else about Mr. Wiggle. And so with Mr. Wiggle, you've got the puppets to find. You've got the ads that advertise the puppets. I have an animation cell which came from someplace else. There's a inflatable bot bag that I guess one person has out there. And there's some little signs that I saw at a show one time as someone else was buying them, which was a tragedy. But these boxes have always just struck me as the one Mr. Wiggle thing. Covering it with my fingers. the one Mr. Wiggle thing that I just had to own. And so, I mean, I don't even know what I paid for them. Maybe only $100 each or something, $150 each, which seems like a lot of money. But I think I've had like one or two duplicates. I think I've had an extra lime and an extra one of the red ones a couple of times. You know, I've never seen it. I've never had access to another one of the grapes. I mean, it's just beautiful. Just beautiful with his little bow tie and his crazy little eyes. Okay. Now we get to look at a piece of wax paper. Guesses out there as to why I have a piece of wax paper in this box. We'll let you guys guess for a couple hours, and then we'll then I'll tell you. Cool Pops. Cool Pops are the Kool-Aid's, answer to an Otter Pops type product. These circus cutouts, which were done by, God, I should know the name of the guy that did these. Oh my God, I know exactly who Milt Youngren. Milt Youngren did a lot of Invisible Ink. No, that is not right. I think Jim Rash should know, or maybe not. I don't know. Milt Youngren was an illustrator, and he did a lot of work for Kool-Aid. I think he did work for Disney too, and he just did a lot of like illustration work. So they'd have to do like 6 different ones of these. I don't think he probably did the owl design. I just love the owl, and wanted one of these really bad. And at one point, I bought one, and it had the Cool Pops in here. And back when I got it, they were still bright and clean and good looking. But as you see, they've turned to sludge, which is, one of the other sad things about all this stuff. I mean, look at this, still sealed up, totally beautiful. Is that the food just continues to deteriorate. And of course, I should take these out of here because, there's always the danger that this is going to spring a leak and then that's going to ooze down. But I do keep it in a bag to try to hopefully alleviate that. Put it back in this bag. Fudge Poppin' Fresh Cupcake Mix. The Pillsbury Doughboy appeared on a lot of packaging, but usually he's about 2 inches tall. This one, he's the star. That's why I love this one. And even better, boom, there's the doll offer on the side. There we go. The doll offer, which is like such the quintessential Doughboy premium. And look at him. He's just standing there holding his cupcake. The Doughboy is an interesting character. Actually, hold on, I'll come back in 1 second. Oh. Boom! The Doughboy. This guy is a resin cast made by Dustin Crop's boy Dallas, who actually, I don't know, I guess he had access to the mold at some point, and so he popped off these beautiful resins. And this is exactly what they would have pulled the foams out of. I don't know how. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I guess it must have been the foams they would pull out of this, because this is him. This is what would have appeared in the commercial. This is a resin version, but they would have probably popped them in some sort of foam, latex foam. I don't know. I'm not a molding person. I don't know how they would put the armature in them and make them into what they needed to be. But this is a scale model. And I remember at one point, if I remember correctly, I was visiting Arto Monaco, who was the creator of Land of Make Believe, and he worked on these commercials. And he had on his shelf, he had one of these guys, which was, as I remember it, degrading terribly. But he had one of these guys up there, and I think one other place I've seen somebody had one. But it's just like here he is, there he is. Now we just do that all in the computer. But it's kind of beautiful to really just see him exactly, you know. And then you see him on the box, and he's so happy. I love the Pillsbury Doughboy. That was when I started collecting. One of the first things I found was the Pillsbury Doughboy telephone. Or maybe my mom found it. My mom and I used to go to the local flea markets, and we used to go together, which was super fun. I don't know what she bought there while I was digging through all the junk I was digging through. But we found that Pillsbury Doughboy phone. At least that's what my memory's telling me. Like all memories, who knows if it's true or not true? Because they're just electrical signals. Well, it looks like we're down to the bottom of the box, and it looks like we've got a lot of Quik canisters to look at. Where do we start? Well, we'll start with this terrible one, which I don't even know why I still have this. Quik with the wacky walkers inside. It's a Canadian one. You can instantly tell it's Canadian because it has two languages. Toronto, Ontario. Pretty boring, but interesting with the free premium inside. Oh, let's see. I borrowed the mold from the place that used to animate them. Sadly, I didn't save one for myself because before having to give it mold back. Well, Dallas, if you ever want to borrow this guy and pull a new mold off him, he is available to you at any time. I believe this is the first iteration of the bunny, and as you see, it's an illustration as opposed to a molded figure. As we'll see in the next ones, they did a molded figure. And once again, these boxes are great because canisters are great because they have a different image on each side, and that's what always kills me is how much care they went into. This one doesn't. This one has a bunch of stupid information, but here's another one. With the cargo ship premium. Boom, premium on the back. SS Eldon. Eldon being one of the plastic companies. But they started with this guy, and then I'm pretty sure, because I think these are like, it's probably early 60s. That has a date on it anywhere. No. And that is always one of the other things is, they were always terrible about dating a lot of products. So then we went to the 3D bunny, which is a thing that I just love to death. Is when they actually make like a physical sculpture of the character, and there's probably only like maybe 20 or 25 different packagings that do that like that. But I'm always on the lookout for those. So you see, it's pretty much the same exact design, but they've made it out of some sort of plasticine or something like that. And once again, plastic. There he is on the side. Boom, still going with the old illustration. Boom, he's making it up. Drinking, making, drinking. And so, of course, there's a number of different variations on this one. This one's just your straight up plain one. This one is your coupon inside for Pop-Tarts, which, if I had a good brain, I could look directly at that Pop-Tarts box and say that is probably from 1970, actually. That would be my guess. 70, 71, I think. And we got a couple more. Oh, let's do that one last. This one is hammered. Frosted Flakes coupon. So looking at that Tony looks very much 1973, 1970. That really looks 74. between 73 and 75. No later than 75. Probably no earlier than 72 would be my guess. 7-cent coupon. That feels like 73 to me. And that's the thing about a lot of this collectible food stuff is you just sort of, I mean, I have a lot of knowledge and it's just sort of based on. I wonder if the 3D figures still exist somewhere. Yes, we all wonder if those figures existed somewhere. I doubt it, but you never know. You never know what's going to show up. And then this is the last of these where it has some little is instantly with milk. We never drank. I mean, I never drank Quik as a kid. My dad loved chocolate Quik, so he would always have it around. But we didn't really go for it. Never was my thing. I like just normal milk. Well, we're getting down to the bottom, and when you get down to the bottom of a box, that means you got to go with the good stuff. Or maybe it's the best stuff. The vanilla Quik. There he is on the side. Nice illustration of him. Boom. Vanilla Quik. And a lot of, well, I guess 3 of these 4, or 3 of these 5 final ones kind of go with the little soda jerk hat. So we throw the little soda jerk hat. And actually he has a little towel on the back. The bunny didn't have that, did he? Well, no, he had the towel too, didn't he? I guess that's a motif. He's got the little towel there. I haven't really ever thought about that. I wonder if, Well, with the soda jerk, and then we'll go, and then we'll look at the chocolate fudge. Boom, chocolate fudge. Chocolate fudge. He's actually a square of fudge. He doesn't really get arms. He doesn't get arms on that side. He's got the arm on the back. Look at all that good stuff you can make. There he is making it with the arm. So, he's got the striped soda jerk hat. The bear just has the sort of captain's hat. Then we have the chocolate malted. I mean, that's, it's all just sort of variations on chocolate. See, I'm still never getting this. A little soda jerk, chocolate malted. He's a little soda jerk, got the little arm. With the spoon, spooning it in there. Then we'll just, we'll go to the chocolate fudge. Wait, was that other one chocolate fudge? Oh, that was chocolate fudge. So these are both chocolate fudge. I always thought there were, see, so they must have had the lion first, and then changed the lion to the fudge guy. Yeah. So I think it would have been, these would have been out. These would have been out at one time because they all have the exact same backs. And then we went. Then this line came out. So they dumped the vanilla, changed the fudge, and then we had these 3. They all have the exact same designs. So they would have, and we don't have they didn't change the rabbit to conform that I can see. I don't have one in there. And then here's the crazy one. This was the last of these that I found. I don't know if it's my favorite, but just from a rarity and weirdness standpoint, it's my favorite. I mean, he's like a banana with a squirt of fudge on his head. Let's see. Sassendorn first did claymation characters out of their studio in Los Angeles. Not sure if they did. That's what Jim says. But wow. And I pried this out of. I think I got this one from Jim Maley. I was like, if you ever want to get rid of that, I have a nice collection for it to go live with. So that's this whole box. Just like this weird post-it note, Land of the Odds. I don't know what that means. Oh my god, I almost spilled my water. But we have one bonus thing out of this book, which normally we would have waited till we got to this book, but since we're doing what we're doing, and actually this sort of answers one of those questions, is these are printer's labels. So they probably would have spit these, folded there. They probably would have printed these out, and somehow they get affixed to the canisters. But probably at the printer, they would print these sort of samples out. And here we have, so this is a Quik probably from the exact comparable time as those, and we can see, oh, I guess we were trying to figure out if they made a Quik with all this stuff. So this doesn't answer that question. But here's another Pop-Tarts offer. Not sure what the connection between Quik and Kellogg's is. Maybe someone knows. I do not know. As you can see, it has some staple marks right here, or staple holes. There are marks. So they probably, a lot of times when printers save stuff, they'll staple something to it, which is like an indicator of what's going on with them. Like when this was printed, what was going on with that. And then here's the beautiful, beautiful bear. And it's just so nice to sort of have like a flat reference on the Quik cans, because they're cans, and you can't, you have to sort of photograph them in 3D. You can't really sort of, you could scan each side, which I'm sure Jason does with things like this. Me giving Jason crap. And of course, as you see, some of them are incredibly rusty on the tops. Whenever I find stuff like this, even if it has the food inside it, I get rid of it, because the food oftentimes will attract moisture, which will then cause it to do bad things to the metal and do bad things to the cardboard, and make your life generally not a lot of fun. So gorgeous. So once again, I've I've talked at length and gotten taken about 40 minutes, which maybe that'll be the typical size of these. But we covered a lot of ground. We got Mr. Wiggle going on. We got Quik. We did us some snaps. I think this will probably be the. If anybody has any questions, now's the time to hit me up before I say goodbye. I wonder if I can look and see how many people are watching. Oh, looks like we might have 7 people, which is great. So if you have any questions, throw them in there, or you can always, everybody knows how to get in touch with me. Leave a comment. Oh yeah, leave comments if you want to know something, if you want to see something. I can always jump ahead if there's something somebody really desperately wants to see. I don't know how we're ever going to do like. My dream is to have like a setup where we had a second camera that shoots down flat, and maybe I'll figure that out someday. But I think this is going to be the last wax paper. This one, you are correct, Jim. This is a wax paper wrap for that's what this is for. What years was Mr. Wiggle around? Mr. Wiggle, I believe, was 1966, maybe just 66, maybe 66, 67. But the wax paper is they would wrap drink mix displays like Funny Face and Kool-Aid in this wax paper. I don't know why, probably to keep the moisture out. But this one, I believe, was for one of the Bugs Bunny Kool-Aids. which I probably sold. It's a little smaller, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I think that's what it is. Jim Rash says 1966 to 67 on Mr. Wiggle. And if there's one person to listen to on that, it is Jim, because Jim probably has copious notes and things, which I do not have. So on Monday, I'm gonna do another stream on Monday, and I'll figure out what I'm gonna do with that. So 10:44. Thanks everybody that came by. If you like it, yeah, please tell your friends. If you want to see me talking and talking and talking. And thanks for being here. See y'all later. Now we're going to have a bunch of button clicking while I try and turn it off. And I have to hit